Hey y'all, hi. The time has come for the single eyeshadows to lip sync for their lives. I have a feeling that most of them are going to sashay away, probably because of age, but also because I'm on an absolute tear in this round of year-end declutters of my makeup collection, getting rid of stuff that I don't use regularly. And it's interesting, my collection of single eyeshadows, it comes in really handy for making content, duping the vibes, building little custom palettes in the overhead filming mode. I love interacting with it in that way, and I love using the shadows that I use to build those palettes. But the fact is that even though I use it in that way, most of the shadows just sit here. I think that the reality is that I tend to use the same eyeshadows over and over again when I build my custom palettes. I think I probably use like 10% of what's actually here. And I am okay today decluttering it down to that 10%. That's my goal. I don't think that it's going to keep me from making content like this. I don't think it's going to keep me from being able to dupe the vibes. It might mean that I won't be able to dupe the vibes as accurately, but you know, an exact dupe of the vibes isn't always the goal when duping the vibes. The fact that a lot of these shadows are several years old at this point, like some of them 4, 5, 6 years old, maybe even older, is going to make it easier for me to follow my heart. And right now what my heart wants is only to keep makeup that is literally in rotation, like makeup that I am using, not just makeup that I store in case I ever want to use it. It could be a wild ride. I'm not exactly sure because I'm feeling so clear-headed about this. Part of me thinks that this is going to be a little bit of a quick one, like just pick the shadows that I use a lot and that I love and then just get rid of all the rest in one fell swoop. But you know, famous last words. I guess we'll find out together. And a little bit of context before I start, you know, I review makeup as part of my work. Several of these shadows were sent to me by brands for review or popped out of palettes that were sent to me by brands for review. Some of them were sent to me as gifts back in the day. And my relationship with my makeup is really marked by the fact that I create content with it. It's valuable to me in a different way than makeup was valuable to me before I started making online content with makeup. So please take what you're about to see with that grain of salt. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed and you'd like to see more content from me. And let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. These are the eyeshadows that I depotted or pulled out of palettes that I was decluttering in my recent eyeshadow palette declutter, which should already be up on my channel. And it's funny, as soon as I look at them in the context of what I'm about to do, decluttering all of my single shadows, I actually regret pulling these ZC shadows out of their palette. Because this palette is actually in pretty good shape otherwise. Like, I've barely used it. I just use these. And if I put them back in, I can give it away to somebody who will like use it as a complete palette, whereas it's not as nice of a thing to give if there are 2 shadows missing. And powder eyeshadows fall into the category of things that can be sanitized, so they can be donated to women's shelters. If none of my friends or family members want this, that's what I'll do with it. And you know, I don't know if it would have been accepted with those missing shadows. It just seems silly to like hold on to these 2 sort of grubby little shiny things when there are so many grubby little shiny things that I'm about to declutter. However, these 3 from the gold palette and this black from the Kaleidos Sci-Fi Green palette, these are beloved eyeshadows that I remember, that I'm intimate with, that I will use over and over again. I'm definitely going to hang on to those. This is the remnants of my most recent Build Your Own palette. I'm just taking them out of this little palette and, you know, throwing them back into the mix so I can decide about them along with everything else. I know that this one, this soft black, belongs in this Lethal palette. So let's start here, actually. This is a custom palette from Lethal Cosmetics. So I built this myself and they sent it to me. It was PR, but I designed it. So I chose all of these colors. I did a review of it. They're really interesting and well-performing eyeshadows. And I think that I have 3 choices with this. 1, I can just keep it intact, which is basically like keeping another eyeshadow palette on top of the 5 that I kept when I decluttered my palettes. Because, you know, they always return to this palette. They all belong together. 2, I could choose to keep some shadows rather than others and just liquidate this and kind of turn it into part of my overall collection of single eyeshadows. And 3, I could declutter the entire thing. I don't think I want to declutter the entire thing. I really like lethal eyeshadows. I like all of these actually. And I like having them here together in this little palette, but I don't like having another physical piece of makeup like floating around. I'm really trying to simplify. So whether I keep all of them or not, I'm tempted to think that what I'll probably do is take them out of this and just mix them in with the larger collection. It'll kind of depend on how much I have left at the end. Okay, this is where I've been storing my square eyeshadows. This palette is from Adept. Adept makes amazing magnetic palettes. I really love the aesthetic of these, and they're beautifully built as well. Also, most of these eyeshadows are from Adept. They were sent to me as PR from the brand. Adept is an indie brand. They were sent to me from the brand for review back when they were thinking of producing and selling single eyeshadows. I mean, they did. They launched single eyeshadows and they sold them for a while. And I believe since then they've discontinued their singles and they've gone just to palettes. And now they sell individual curated eyeshadow palettes kind of singles, but they're not selling the product that's right here that I reviewed and that I've been using to dupe the vibes and to rearrange and make my own palettes that I've been using ever since then. It has been a couple years. I feel like the mattes here, which were never my absolute favorites, although some of them are great, have started to feel a little more dusty, and I just am not using them. I'm not using them usually in my palettes when I build palettes of singles. However, some of the shimmers and metallics are really, really, really great. And I feel like they're kind of actually being underused by me because they're lost in this vast tiled floor. And then here I have my Cliona shadows, one old Natasha Denona single that was a gift. I use these all the time. Like, these are usually the stars of the show when I'm building my own palettes. I think that what I'm going to do is to extract from this palette the shadows that I know that I love, rather than going through one by one and being like, should I keep it? Should I not? Because it's so much. I'm just going to take the ones that I know that I love and that I use. And the criteria for me to keep something from here is going to be that it makes me want to pull it from this palette right now because I recognize it, you know? I'm going to go through and do that right now, and then we'll see how things are feeling. So these are all of my Cliona shadows, and I pulled the ones in from the side that were separate because they had been in my most recent palette. I pulled them all out because to me it's like a no-brainer. I'm obsessed with these shadows. I use them all the time, love them so much. But actually, there are a couple that I don't use. Flicker and Ambient, they're kind of like these shiny, sheer, kind of color shifting toppers. They add a color flip and sort of a pearlescent flip to your look when you layer them on top. I usually don't want to add like a flip of green or a flip of pink. I usually want to keep things more neutral, and they don't have the same exact textural satisfaction of the other Cliona shadows. I just don't use them. I'm going to declutter them. I wasn't expecting to edit my Cliona shades, but I feel good about it. All the rest are keepers though. I really love them. This is Natasha Denona Sienna. I believe that it's still available as a single on Beautylish, along with a bunch of other Natasha Denona singles. It's a really pretty shadow. I love pulling this for my custom palettes, but it's lost its kind of creaminess and luster. It's really old. This was a gift. Someone had decluttered it from her collection and sent it to me as a gift like 4 years ago, and it's just not the same. So I'm going to declutter it too. Okay, now for the rest of the tiled floor, just pulling the ones that I know that I love. that's it, y'all. It's just these grungy little guys. These are the ones that I just use over and over again and that are still really, really creamy, crushy, really, really rich. The rest of these, they've served their purpose for me. You know, I've made a lot of content with them. Back when it was relevant, I reviewed them really thoroughly. And what they do now is they just sit here as options when I'm building custom palettes, options that I don't take, you know? They just sit there as options that I don't take. And I don't want to hang on to stuff that sits there as options that I don't take anymore. Okay, and here's where I've been storing my round. Oh, except here's Gargoyle. Is that what that is? Yeah, I thought there was another Cleona shadow. Here's where I've been storing my round eyeshadows, and a lot of these, y'all, are so old. A lot of these, again, they were like gifts way back when my channel was super small, and a couple of subscribers sent me like single eyeshadows they weren't using, like when there were just a handful of us, you know? But so that means that some of these are shadows that somebody owned before me, like 5 years ago, and then gave to me. So I don't know how old they are, but they're at least 4 or 5 years old. And then some of them have just come to me from various places over the years. Some of the old ones still perform really well, like this one. This is Sydney Grace Defiance, and it never dies. It's like eternally incredible, and I use it a lot. I'm gonna keep this. What else is jumping out at me? I'm going by the same principle as I was the other one. Like a shadow has to sort of offer itself to me for me to keep it. I think I'm going to keep these 4 ColourPop glitters. As you can see, I actually use them quite a lot. I love including them in palettes for texture. This is Get Lost, Renegade, Indio, and Hungry Ghost. These are the 4 kind of more neutral ones that I have. I especially love Get Lost and Hungry Ghost, but this sort of bronzy rose gold one and this more rosy rose gold one also come in handy depending on the color stories that I'm trying to create. I feel like these are definitely in rotation. Like I've put one or the other of them, I've put each of them into a single eyeshadow palette and used it at least once over the past 6 to 8 months. So I feel good about keeping those. But this really orange one and this really white one don't need to stay. Okay, what else is speaking to me here? I think this is Golden Olive. Yeah, this is Colored Rain Golden Olive, another single that is who knows how old. I think I can let this go. It's feeling a little thin, a little bit hard panny. It doesn't have that sort of powdery, textured, flaky lusciousness that Sydney Grace Defiance has retained. It has served me really well though. I love this color. I also think I have some other singles in this color, like the shadow that I kept from the gold palette is not quite as olivey as this, but kind of serves the same purpose. These big pans are all from Depotted Juvia's Place palettes that Angie gave me as a gift back during my no-buy year. Like I depotted them forever ago. Some of these are from like old Morphe palettes that I decluttered way back then. An old Sephora shadow that was a gift. I feel like there's a question about this, which I know is Urban Decay Lounge, sort of the quintessential blue-brown pigment. I've owned this for a really long time. I bought this for myself way before my no-buy year. I mean, it might have even been 2016 that I bought this for myself as a single, and I depotted it. It looks like it's still doing amazing though, and it's kind of like an icon, sort of like an iconic reference point for me. I'm gonna see how it feels to keep that. I feel like these sort of greeny blue, these really special greeny blue shadows have lived long lives for me. What's this? This is Luxie Queen of Mean, Colored Rain Forbidden, and Luxie Rage. And I really love these. They've been great. I love the rich, nuanced, deep teal when I use them. I really love that. And they're so pretty, but they're so old. And I just know they're not really doing what they used to in the same way, you know? I mean, the pigment is kind of there, but the texture feels dry compared to the creaminess that I remember from these. And I'm just not out here like longing to put that color on my eyes these days. And if I get a longing to put that color on my eyes, I would love to support one of those brands by buying fresh ones, you know? I've never made an order from Luxie Beauty or Sydney Grace. I only have this handful of shadows that were given to me that are really old. And that's like the way that I've gotten to know those brands. So it's okay with me letting those go and just seeing if I miss them and seeing if I ever want to try one of those brands kind of my own accord. You know what this is? Is it called 24/7 from the Jaclyn Hill palette? Oh my gosh, it's still kind of giving. I'm gonna keep this for old time's sake. I'll see if I use it. It's that eyeshadow that does that thing, that slight sheeny, kind of creamy and super sturdy all day look, all day and all night. This one's not quite as old, Tinker Time. Some of these are from a ColourPop order that I made for myself, but still, that was like 3 years ago and it's ColourPop. They don't last super long. This is Tinker Time. I got it kind of hoping it would do something similar to the Jaclyn Hill one, but it's too pale and it doesn't like give me what I need on my lids. I think that's it, y'all. I think we're done here. I think all of these are going the way of the dinosaur, or they have already gone the way of the dinosaur, and I just didn't notice because I was like not paying attention because I was testing makeup or using my Pat McGrath palettes or something. I think this is it. So I'm gonna do some rearranging. Okay, so apart from the Lethal palette, which I still have to make a decision about, this is the situation. This is what remains. The single shadows that I'm keeping and the ones that I'm decluttering. And listen, don't be sad or anxious about this. The vast majority of what's here is expired makeup, right? It's like dusty old pigment that no one would want to put on their eyes. And the thing that's great about single eyeshadows is that volume-wise, it's really just not that much stuff. There's no plastic packaging, there's no outer packaging. Even though it's such a dramatic lot of my collection that's going here, the volume of stuff that I'm decluttering in this video is only a mere fraction of the volume of stuff that I've decluttered in all the other videos. The thing that's really interesting, I think the thing that is sort of the most dramatic, is what you could maybe call the homogeny of what remains, right? I've taken out of my singles collection things like a really, really bright pop of red, a really, really bright pop of magenta, or yellow, those colorful mattes, blue, unless we, include the Lethal shadows, which are holding down the blue fort. Almost all mattes are gone, right? I think I just have this black Dijon from the gold palette. That's it. It seems that I'm not interested in having mattes as single shadows right now. None of them made me want to keep them. And again, yeah, it'll probably change the nature of the process of building overhead palettes. It'll change the nature of duping the vibes, but I'm okay with that. I'm evolving and I'm willing to kind of take the leap and take the risk based on what feels really sustainable to me in my personal life right now. Not to mention the fact that a lot of those mattes aren't performing anymore because mattes are kind of the first shadows to go off. And if I'm really feeling pinched in the future when I sit down to film videos like this, again, I'll buy some mattes from some indie brands. I'll try using the universal palette builder that Gina and Imani just launched and get myself a little palette to flesh out this collection. I think it was really, really time for some turnover in the world of my single shadows. And I'm more inspired and excited by what remains, this little edit, than I was by the larger collection with which I started the video. So let's take a look at the Lethal shadows and kind of decide what I'm going to do about storage. The thing is, they'd all fit together in the square palette. I mean, they'll all fit together in here with room to spare. Let's put them in and see how we're feeling. Okay, there. I love it. I literally live, laugh, love it. I love it. I feel like the Lethal Cosmetics mattes really filled out this collection, right? So right before I did this, when I was saying, you know, if I feel like I don't have the mattes that I need to build my own palette, I can place an order from an indie brand and like get some mattes to fill it out. It's like, well, I actually had that palette right there. That little palette of singles that includes the cool toned brown that I love, the shiny black, the matte soft charcoal black, this kind of gray taupe, a matte rust, and some pops of color. Adding them in really turned this into the rainbow. You know, we have red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. It's the grungy rainbow. It's the grungy version of almost all of those colors. But, you know, for me, a grungy rainbow is the only rainbow worth having. And I'm always going to be leaning into that way of saturating and balancing color when I'm building eyeshadow palettes for myself because of what I love to wear. I think I'll be able to do a lot with this. It looks really versatile to me and really exciting. And most importantly, every single one of these eyeshadows is one that I've used a number of times over the past year, that I'm intimate with the performance of, that excites me. Not one of these gives me that kind of little letdown feeling like, oh, I think it's past its prime. It's a color that I don't really love. It's something that I didn't choose. You know, it's like, I feel like I chose all of these and then chose them again and then chose them again just now when I chose them to stay. So this feels like a little palette of precious jewels. And that was what I was trying to edit down to today. Y'all, that is going to be it for my single eyeshadow declutter for this year. I'll be following my future career with great interest. I'm kind of curious to see what I end up doing with this. I'll try to do something soon with it so that we can all find out what's going to happen. I hope that you enjoyed this one. I thank you so much for being here. Again, don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more from me. And don't forget to take extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.